Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the McShin Foundation's award-winning recovery podcast, Get in the Herd. Um, my name is Nathan Mitchell. I'm your host today. I'm a person in recovery from a substance use disorder, and for me, that means I don't do self-destructive things as much as I used to anymore, and I don't put drugs and alcohol in my system anymore. Today, our special guest is JoAnna Vance from West Virginia. Among the thousands of things that she does, she's also a state lead with the Recovery Advocacy Project in West Virginia. So, you know, we can talk about West Virginia Recovery Advocacy Project. We can talk about baseball. We can talk about first days of school. We can talk about whatever you want because JoAnna and I are friends, and I'm so happy you're here. And I definitely want to talk about Mobilize Recovery. So, welcome to the show, JoAnna. Anything you want to say to start off?
It's been a while. I'm glad to be back on. For those of you who don't know, my name is JoAnna Vance, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. And what that means to me is I've not been bound by a life of substance use disorder since March the 13th of 2016. This past March, I celebrated my 5 years, and I'm super pumped about that. Not only I'm state lead for the West Virginia Recovery Advocacy Project, and I'm a mom and a wife and a daughter and a sister, and a cousin. Just living life nowadays because Lord knows that I wasn't doing very good at it when I was actively using.
Well, welcome back to the show. We're making Justin work hard today over here, JoAnna. Welcome back to the show. I know that there's been a lot going on in West Virginia, and you've had some wins and some losses as far as recovery and recovery advocacy, and going into, well, it's an election year here in Virginia, but I know it's not there. But going into a new session, I believe what starts in January for you all as well. What have you got? What are the wins and losses you've had this year, and what are you working on for the coming year?
Well, this past year was really rough when it came to legislation. We spent the majority of our energy like fighting bad bills. Senate Bill 334 basically restricted and closed down the majority of our syringe access programs here in West Virginia. It's basically leaving it up to your county commission as to if you can have a syringe access program in your area or not. And then, the regulations on it are just absolutely insane. And of course, they want the one-to-one syringe exchange, and you have to have the majority of support from your county commission. It's just a mess. And we fought really hard against it, but it still got pushed through. Probably set us back 10 years, that bill right there, here, like in recovery in West Virginia. Anyways, one bill that we did win that we fought against, well, we didn't win it. Well, we did win. It died in Senate. Was the extended supervision bill for formerly incarcerated people. And what it did is if you got a drug charge or a felony, then, well, more specifically a drug charge, then after you served your time in jail, and then after you were done on probation or parole or whatever, then you were going to have to spend 10 more years on supervision. Seeing your parole officer, taking drug tests, doing all that. And it was absolutely insane. So thankfully we got that one closed. We got that one shut down.
With the with Mobilize Recovery coming up, and I'm watching Justin over there, so we're going to try to keep the feedback by he's hitting the volume or the mute button. So I apologize, JoAnna, if I'm a little stunted more so than usual in my conversation. But with Mobilize Recovery coming up, and so for everybody who's listening, watching, Mobilize Recovery is a national gathering of recovery advocates from across the country, and I believe we've got all 50 states and a couple of the territories represented this year, coming and converging in Nevada in a few weeks. Just a little over a month, I think. I know, right? Have you started packing? But getting together. No, no, I can't fit in any of my clothes from last year. COVID has hit me hard in the gut. But anyway, so we're all going to get together and we're going to meet. And some of us haven't even met in person. I think you and I met only no once or twice maybe in person. But we're going to meet, talk about what's working in the different states, and continue to have these conversations because we are both people in recovery. And in fact, so behind the scenes here, we've got Justin and Pete, who are helping out with all the tech stuff here. They're both people in recovery, right? So all four of us right here in recovery right now, talking about recovery stuff. Like, we have this brain trust right here. So when we get together to have a conference and say, hey, this is what's working, this is what we need to do, this is how we can influence, this is how we can reduce stigma here. We look at what Rhode Island's been doing, with their safe consumption sites that they're about, safe consumption sites, and all the things that are happening. And then we've had issues with needle exchanges here, with police being near the needle exchange points and just arresting people as they go. So tell us, what are you excited most about Mobilize Recovery?
Oh Lord, I don't know. I'm still kind of in awe that it's happening. I mean, and then all the announcements that they keep sending out about what we're going to be doing while we're there. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to be there. Um, I've only actually flown one time, and that was last year to Florida. So it'll be interesting flying to Vegas. Um, let's see. Well, I'm really looking forward to coaching with the public narrative team. That's exciting. Definitely, they just announced that concert. That was a huge surprise. I think ultimately, like, I'm just so excited to finally meet the community and family of people that we have built, because we basically, Recovery Advocacy Project started, a year ago. Well, no, was it 2 years ago now? And like the majority of it, we were fighting a pandemic upon an epidemic. And, that's how we built our community through that. And I can't wait to finally like actually get to meet, because only very few of you, like you and Johnny Fab, just a very few have I actually met in person. So I'm really excited to meet all the people that are, a part of my community.
Awesome. And you alluded to the concert. And so, hey, Tim Perry, Mobilize in the house, up there. I see you. I'm not sure. Tim, where are you from, man? Put that in the chat, because I'm not sure. I don't know if we've met. But I'm also looking forward to that concert too. We've got Macklemore. I can say that publicly because it's been announced publicly, right? Macklemore at the closing concert that we get to watch, and I'm sure there's some other good stuff in there too. But I saw that, and I remember as I was, because I didn't. I, what's the word I'm looking for? I was not really a big fan of hip hop and rap, except, I started really listening to Macklemore. Oh, okay, Florida. I started to listen to Macklemore on my trip last year, recognizing that he is a person in recovery. And I thought, well, let me just listen to this music. And I think I spent a long time driving through the desert and then up the California coast. On my way to Seattle, I kept trying to hit him up, see if he would let meet with me. He never hit me back, but it was a pipe dream. But he's in Seattle, and so I'm the whole way up the coast listening. I must have listened to his entire discography 15 times on that trip last year. So I'm really excited about that too. But like you said, getting together and connecting with the people, connecting with each other, right? Like, I know that 2 years ago, naloxone, and I think in a lot of states it's still an issue getting access to naloxone. Virginia's been pretty open about that, I think, and our access is pretty predominant. In fact, it's also, with recovery housing, it's required. So, it's a great thing that has changed too. So now for us in Virginia, I know some of the issues that we have are some of the issues that have already been tackled in other communities, or some of the other communities, have issues that we've tackled here in Virginia. So it's a great opportunity to share that. I'm also in that public narrative track as well. So I'm looking forward to, I'm a little nervous, because we'll be coaching, right? I'm a little nervous, but at the same time, it's a wonderful honor and it's a privilege, for us to work together on these things. So, what are the issues going on in West Virginia? Talking about not even the legislative session, but what are you seeing in West Virginia as emerging trends, either positive or negative, Here with Overdose Awareness Month and then Overdose Awareness Day on the 31st, we saw a 41% increase in overdose deaths in Virginia, which is higher than the national. I think it was like 30% nationally. So, we're looking at the fentanyl, we're looking at the response time and all that stuff. What are y'all looking at?
I can't think of what our percentage was, but it was very high. So we are looking at our standing order and seeing what we can change with our standing order for naloxone to get more naloxone out. Some things along the lines of like secondhand distribution, because as of right now, you can only distribute like individually. Like a bigger organization can't give like 100 doses to a smaller organization. Like it's against the standing order. So that's some stuff that we're looking at. We are, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not. I think the plan went out. We're looking at, we took a model from Nevada, and they have the vending machines, like the vending distribution machines, and where they have, theirs are like contraceptive and harm reduction and naloxone. Like ours will be Narcan vending machines that we're going to be putting over the state. And then looking at something that's kind of the same as a quick response team, but more like less of law enforcement and more of recovery community. Like still continue with our quick response teams, but we want some on the ground like recovery community organizations like knocking on doors.
Mm-hmm. In Virginia last year, we the Marcus Alert bill that went through, which is mobile crisis units to go out either as an accompaniment with police or separately from police. And this is, I see this because the peer recovery specialists are named in the bill as people who can go out and do these things. What I see there is the beginning of, at least in Virginia, getting more access to peer recovery support specialists, which is a big deal here, into the emergency departments at hospitals. So not capturing, that's the wrong word, but involving people or introducing people to recovery at that point, at that crisis point, because here there's a big problem in Virginia with the treat and street model of dealing with an overdose, and I think it's probably all over the country, right? You go in, they treat the overdose, you're out in a few hours, and you may cycle back and be right back in there later that day or even dead, which has happened many times. And yeah, we're not going to get everybody involved in recovery, but at least that introduction, because if we're not treating it as the addiction crisis, as the epidemic it is, if we're just treating it as the emergency and then you're out the door, we're not actually doing any good. We're just wasting time, and I guess we're wasting money too, but we're not actually helping anybody. We're not saving the lives. We're just treating and streeting. So as a model for that, I'm looking at what we did with what happened with Marcus as something that we can help with getting into those emergency departments. And that's something that we've been working on here in Virginia for a couple of years. Model legislation that went through called Danny's Law, and maybe Julie Funkhauser up in So she is responsible for Danny's Law. It was her husband, and he presented with a mental health crisis and a substance use emergency at a hospital, and ended up not being able to see somebody right away, left and died as a result of that. And what we did was try to come together. Julie and her big coalition tried to do was create better policy in the emergency departments, and this beautiful bill, it went through. And by the time the bill went through every committee, it was just completely sliced and diced. And instead of actually doing anything, all they did literally at the end of the day, it was like, okay, here's some information about recovery. And you get a flyer instead of having the peer recovery specialists having naloxone. That was one of the issues too. So the bill went through again last year, and a separate bill trying to enhance that, just to add naloxone. You come in, you've overdosed, you leave with naloxone, and we got pushback. we got pushback from the doctors and the nurses, and we're like, well, come on, man, what are you doing? So the barriers around here. Um, what do you see, going into the fall? What do you see as trends, with fentanyl? Here we're seeing a lot more, polysubstance issues, and it's still fentanyl, but it's fentanyl in methamphetamines, fentanyl in the cocaine. Are you seeing the same thing in West Virginia? How are you educating users, consumer, drug users on the street? How are you working with people? How are we meeting people where they're at, and how are you doing that?
Um, it's a lot of the same here, in fentanyl, carfentanil, in methamphetamines, in pressed pills, in, all of the uppers. And, hang on, my husband just came in. But, so, we started to address, like, getting fentanyl testing strips, Well, now it's to the point that, there's basically fentanyl in everything. Everything. I think Chad Sabora was talking about it. I hope I said his name right, was actually talking about this. And there's almost no point in testing for fentanyl because you already know it's in there. Mm. And then as far as, we're getting Narcan on the ground to people who use drugs, telling people, don't use alone. There's a national hotline now. It's called Never Use Alone. And you can actually, while you're using, you can call that hotline and talk to them on the phone. And then, like, if something happens and you were to overdose, then they would call the ambulance and send them to your house or wherever it was that you told them that you were located so that you didn't die. I mean, and that's something I'll get a little bit personal. My cousin just in July, and there's a big reason that I'm pushing Never Use Alone because my cousin overdosed and died in July with Narcan on the stand beside of him because he was using alone, and he wasn't using like heroin or anything like that. So yeah, don't use alone. Test your drugs. There's probably still going to be fentanyl in them. At least that if you're not looking for, downers or anything like that. And just educating people. Like, we talk about meet people where they're at. Like, okay, so we're finally people in recovery are just now finally getting a seat at the table, for people to listen to them about what needs to happen. We need to have people who use drugs at the table also. I mean, a lot of them don't want to because they're, stigma, but like ideally they are the people on the ground. Ultimately, more people who use drugs save more people's lives every day using Narcan than, the majority of anybody else. And that's because they are on the front lines. They're there in the midst of it. And I think what's really important that we start to connect with them and see, hey, what could work? What won't work? What's already what's happening, so we can figure something out, because clearly, we're losing the war on drugs and we have to figure out something else.
Yeah, that notion that we were ever going to win the war on drugs confounds me. That this was something that people thought. And without going into all that, because I know John, and John and I talk about John especially. We'll start talking about the history of the drug war and the racist implications from way back and all the things. But going into where we are today, the stigma of addiction, but also the stigma of harm reduction within the recovery community. And something I've noticed in my own bias, of course, I work a 12-step abstinence-based program for my recovery, and I work in a place that practices an abstinence-based recovery, and it's the way we that's the way we navigate the court systems, the way we navigate probation. It's the way we navigate recovery. And I say abstinence-based, but I'll leave MAT/MAR in there, without getting into a whole conversation about whether that's absent or not. But even as I say that, we're here with McShin and other recovery community organizations, looking at how we can incorporate green recovery techniques, technology techniques, the marijuana involvement. So, there's room to look at other modalities that aren't necessarily abstinence based. And I personally, I am new in my recovery. I just celebrated 3.5 years yesterday. Right. I appreciate that. But it's like, I feel, it's like, I mean, I'm still, I had to call my sponsor because my boss said something yesterday I didn't like, so that's where I'm at in my recovery. Right. But that's okay. Like, I probably will, I hope I'm still doing that 20 years in. Right. But when I look at that, I'm like, trying to embrace and wrap my head around something such as, harm reduction and what that really means, meeting people where they're at, actually saying to somebody, recovery doesn't have to be just about stopping all drug use, which, is something that I have been able to wrap my head around. But the nuance of how do I work in an abstinence-based environment, and I understand the necessity of that, while also, working with individuals who aren't abstinence-based. So it's really cool to navigate these things for me and learn about these things. And I've done that through a lot with the Recovery Advocacy Project and all around the country, meeting people who are doing this incredible work. Now, is that Edmund back there?
He was just, I think his brother just knocked on the door. I was like, he can't come in here. I want a podcast. Y'all gonna have to go outside.
What got you into this? Well, first of all, like I know you work a different recovery program, I think, than a 12-step, if I recall correctly. And I might be misspeaking on that, but if you don't mind, share with us what it is that got you into this, but where what happened, what it was like, what happened, what it's like now, if you don't mind, for our listeners.
So I came through a path, and it's called spontaneous recovery. In C card, they call it solo recovery. But so I didn't get a detox, and I didn't go to a recovery residence. I really spent the first year of my life like playing the piano and painting. Actually, I was just painting before we got on the podcast. I'm going to be at the Art Walk in Charleston at the West Virginia Drug Intervention Institute this evening. I might show you my painting that I made. And okay, so in that first year, there was a Facebook page, and it was a website, and it was called Addictions Unscripted. All right, so people would, submit poems, writings, blogs, that kind of stuff, and they would post them on the website. Well, it just so happened, Ryan Hampton came along, and he posted on that website. So I was like, oh, I really like what he had to say. Let me follow him. And, I've just been following Ryan over the years. Like, actually, the very first year that they had the Recovery Fest that Macklemore was at, we had a Recovery Fest here in Beckley, and that was my first year ever. That was my first time ever doing an event. Yeah, it's gotten way bigger since then. But so positive outlets for negative energy. That was write, draw, paint, play music. I read a lot of books and learned a lot of new things. And then about 2 years into my recovery, like I'd always advocated a little bit anyways, but like then 2 years into my recovery is when I took, the Recovery Coach Academy and everything. And that's when I really started to, I met 12-step people. I met faith-based people. I met people with people that on medication. And then something that I've really much enjoyed definitely over the past year. I was introduced to harm reduction about 2 years ago, but ideally in the past year, I've met so many more organizers that it's not just 12-step and faith-based and MAT. It's harm reductionists. It's it's drug users unions. All of the family members that are involved in all kinds of different things. And it's just like, once that you think that you know what's going on, you realize you don't know anything of what's going on, because there's just opens up a whole new door of possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I love about what we're doing with Mobilize Recovery and this conversation that we're having now, and the organization that I work for, and I know the organizations you participate with that give us the opportunity to um, expand our own knowledge, but to be the ability to help more people, and understanding that what, I don't know everything. We don't know everything, but we do know there's a crisis. We do know there's an epidemic of addiction, and we do know people are losing their lives. And so, what can we do? Let's help, help, help. And I think about the people I've met along this journey, my journey as a recovery advocate. I think about the people who are doing some really incredible boots on the ground, grassroots, right there in the muck with individuals right where they're at. And I think about the people I met in Maryland. I forget where I was in Maryland, but who had a separate little outbuilding outside of their RCO, a small building outside, and in there was a locked office, a locked closet with gray backpacks, and it was kitted out with, clean needles, all Narcan, I think some food. I think they would come out there with snacks too. And they would just go out and they would literally walk right down the road and literally meet people where they were and say, what, and these are people in recovery, people who had been on those streets. And I love that about this. I met recovery through an individual who kept coming into the jail where I was. And the biggest thing that connected with me to him was that he'd been in the same jail that I'd been in, you know? Otherwise, his politics were different than mine. He was older, all the things were different. I could look at, and I could definitely, if I wanted to, say, I'm not that guy. But the reality is, we really bonded, we really connected. And I still connect with him every once in a while on Facebook and say hello. So it's like these connections that we make with each other, um, are amazing. And this whole experiment of recovery, I say experiment, but we're proving that it works, right? But this whole recovery movement that we're making and creating right now is made better when we can, we get together and we continue to push each other to do more, to do better, to create ideas, bring more people in. So I love that. I love what you're doing. Um, what drives you? I mean, I know what drives you because I know you, but what drives you, gets you up in the, because you've got a husband, you've got little kids who just started school. I'm laughing at that. I love you, JoAnna. Who just went back to school this week. You what is it, baseball or softball that y'all do, right? Like, I know you're a busy mom. With a busy life and blah 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 blah, and yet you continue to show up. You continue to suit up and show up and do the work. Why?
I mean, oh gosh, that's what that whole video. Did you submit your video yet? Why recover out loud? I've had to really do some thinking. Because ultimately, when I was actively using drugs, I didn't know anybody. Okay, so I live in Beckley, West Virginia now, but I'm from Boone County. Okay, and Boone County literally has like 2 stoplights in the whole county, and they're by the courthouse. But like, I grew up with parents who used drugs. My dad overdosed and died on Thanksgiving Day. Like, it was normal. I was using drugs with my parents when I was 12 years old. Like, that was just normal. So it was really hard for me to figure out what normal was. And then I'll tell you what, it was a slap in the face when I realized they ain't no such thing as normal. That's something I think a lot of people, when they come into recovery, they're like, oh, well, I quit using drugs. So now everything's going to be better, or now I'm just going to be normal. What is the standard for normal? But so I never knew anybody who had been through the same thing as me, had been in active addiction and then turned their life around and did something else. And so all of my friends that I talked to then, when I was actively using, they didn't know anybody either. I was like, oh, okay. Well, then, after I found recovery, I didn't really talk to those friends anymore. And I ended up losing one of my best friends. And I just felt so bad because I didn't even message him. Like, he was one of my very best friends. And I didn't even message him and check on him or anything like that. And actually have a non-academic scholarship in his memory called Wes's Gift. But I think back to that all the time, and now, there's more than 23 million people in America who, are in recovery today. And people are still dying more than they ever have been. So it's just a matter of, like, I know if I don't do it, somebody's still going to do it. And I don't do everything. Trust and believe. You should know. If people watching this don't know, I am a hot mess. Like, I think one of my friends, one of the recovery advocacy people from Florida, she's like, you're such an inspiration, Jane. I'm like, dude, I'm a mess. And she's like, I hope that I carry my messes half as good as you. I'm like, girl, I hope you don't got to carry the messes that I do.
I love that. Yeah. But you are an inspiration. You are an inspiration. And what I'm hearing you say that you are a mess. And I love that. And it's funny because I was actually talking about that. What I hear that as negative self-talk. And I was talking about that yesterday in our McShin community meeting for the whole house, for all the houses. When I first got to McShin as a participant, I used to walk around here. I would call myself an asshole all the time. It was the story that I kept telling myself over and over and over again. And whether or not I laughed it off as, oh, I'm just kidding, I had told it so many times that I believed it. And there was Moses, who was on the show last night. Moses suggested to me that I not do that. But he didn't. That's all I know, right? And you're laughing, but the reality was it was a revelation to me. He didn't give me any context. He didn't say anything other than maybe you shouldn't do that. And of course, I went and took that seed, and he that's what he does. He's 39, 8 years of recovery. Plant this little tiny seed, and here it is. 3 years later, I'm still talking about this damn thing. But the reality, though, is that I stopped calling myself an asshole because I stopped telling. I don't want to tell myself that story over and over again. I've got plenty of opportunities for people around me to come and tell me that I'm an asshole if they want to. I've proven that I can be an asshole, but I don't want to be that guy. And and when I think about that, like I think about the mess, and I beat myself up about that too. It's like I take on all these things. I've got this book over here, I got this book over here. I'm here from, like, the other day I was literally working from I think it was like 7:30 in the morning. I met Justin until 9 o'clock at night, and it's meeting after this. I'm at the court, and I'm this and that. And the next thing I know, I'm just like, I'm in bed going, what am I doing? Have I gone to a meeting lately? Have I checked in with my sponsor? And I did check in with my sponsor yesterday, but it's like I have to also remember to take care of my recovery. And part of that is reminding myself that, man, it's a freaking miracle that today, and I mean today, just today, I didn't wake up and do the things I used to do when I was actively seeking to put substances in my body to numb feelings and really just sort of obliterate any real thought, and emotions. Now I deal with emotions. Now I deal with those, or I cope, and I work, and I have strategies. So, oh, what's that? Is that? Oh,
Say hi. That's Tucker. Now go play. You call yourself an asshole. Don't do that. I understand what you're saying about the negative talking. I tell you what, I'm harder on myself than anyone. The one thing though is I like to share my struggles with people, the mess that I'm in. What I shared on Facebook about the kids in school the other day. Like, I share that stuff so that, people know that I'm not perfect. My life isn't perfect. I still struggle, like, as does everybody. I talk to so many friends, like, that we confide in one another, our personal struggles. And they're like, man, thank God, dude, it's not just me. because people need to know, like, right back on, life isn't perfect after you stop using drugs. Like, you still have struggles. And for the people that put, on social media that their life is just perfect all the time, they're lying, guys.
I hope for them that they're not. I really do. Good for them, and that's good for them. Yeah. Um, I love that you share your struggles openly too. I get it. We talked about this right before the show about your kids and starting school and all the confusion. And it's not just you around the country. There's so much confusion about who's starting, how are we starting, and my own sister, what they've decided to do is to homeschool. They've got a 15-year-old who was already going to be homeschooled anyway. I know, right? My sister, she's just, and then she's got a 5-year-old who's walking into kindergarten for the first time, and decided instead of sending a kid to kindergarten, they're just going to do homeschool the first year anyway too. Um, they've been home together for. She's got a 15-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old. My sister is a saint. She really is. But they're also, she's worked with the kids, but that's another story. But she's, confused. It's she just moved out of state, all the new things coming up. Um, life is not perfect and roses and unicorns and rainbows all the time. And I appreciate that you do that. And it's good to have people to share those struggles with. I mean, I have a few. I always say cast a wide net, but draw it tight, right? And I do that. I tell a lot of things to a lot of people sometimes, but there are some, real deep stuff. Like they're only, just a short list of people. Justin's one of those guys I talk to all the time. It's nice to have him here all the time. But I've known Justin since day one moving into McShin, coming down here from Northern Virginia. So anyway, what's going on in your life right now? You got the husband home early today. You got the brother-in-law home today. What's going on at your house? And by the way, loving the office space back there. Cool pictures. What's going on with you today? What are you packing? Are you going to do the Grand Canyon while you're in Vegas? Have you got any ideas? You want to go see Magic Mike with me? Um, what kind of stuff you want to do when you get there? Let's talk. Let's talk about fashion.
Okay, hang on. I'm wearing this. I'm probably gonna bring this outfit to Vegas, but I'm wearing it to the art walk today. It's just like a little romper, like tie dye. Me, my recovery t-shirts and my Converse to match. I'm probably gonna have a couple business casual outfits, and then a couple little outfits like this. I am not one to dress up. Lord have mercy. I am planning on, with my cousin, going to Hell's Kitchen. We already made reservations, and then apparently there's an Eiffel Tower in Paris, or not Paris. There's in Paris. I know there's one in Paris, but there's an Eiffel Tower in Vegas. And I'm gonna go to that with my cousin. There's been a couple people talking about going to escape rooms. They're like, guys, I'll get lost in Vegas, much less getting lost in an escape room in Vegas. But I'm down for that too. Haven't really planned too much. Lord have mercy, my GPS better work, or I'll just stay lost the whole time. I'll be the girl. I'll be the girl that's walking around aimlessly, wondering where she's at all the time. So if you see me, anybody, please make sure I'm going in the right direction.
I think that we're going to have a van, so you're welcome to jump in. But I'll tell you, I was in Vegas last year. Now, of course, as you know, the conference went virtual last year, but I had already booked my tickets, my room to be there before then. And as you know, I was driving around the country, so I said, well, to heck with it, I'll just go to Vegas anyway. So I can tell you, if you're staying at the Westgate, that bedroom is ridiculously comfortable. Those beds are ridiculously comfortable. I hope you enjoy that experience as much as I did last year, because I could do that virtually from that room again, and probably be just fine. We did walk. I did see the little Eiffel Tower. There was something funny about. There's also a Statue of Liberty there too, and the Statue of Liberty actually had a mask on because pandemic last year, so there was a mask on her, and it was funny because it wasn't really noticeable unless you really looked at it. In fact, it was only after I took the picture and looked at the picture that I went, oh, there's a mask on that. But I was walking around with Heather Ogden from New Jersey. She's going to be on the show next week, actually on Tuesday. We were walking around together on the Vegas Strip, and I don't gamble. Well, let me rephrase. I don't successfully gamble, so I don't gamble, and because of process addictions. But when we walked around, we actually walked into a cannabis dispensary. Not to partake, obviously, but just to see what the hype was all about down there. But I don't think you're going to get lost. I think there'll be so many happy activists and advocates, down there, and people want to do stuff together and connecting, and there's so many people that we'll all do stuff together. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the conference. I mean, the concert for sure. I am looking forward to those the narrative classes. The ones that we get to. I realize that we've got a training on that coming up. Um, and wouldn't you know, I've got double duty that day too. But what are you guys doing? Switching tacks here. As you know, we're getting at 42 minutes. So, what are you doing to commemorate um, Overdose Awareness Day and this full month? What are you doing for the 31st?
So our statewide event, we actually hold it the Saturday before. We always hold it at the Capitol the Saturday before because a lot of people can't come on the 31st because during a weekday, you know. So we are having an event. I'm sorry, there's a fly bugging me. We are having an event at the Capitol on the 28th. It's called, the theme this year is Remember and Rise. I'm actually speaking at it. We're going to have the Can You See Me Now banners, a couple speakers. We're going to have Narcan training. We're setting up a selfie station. We're going to decorate lanterns for a big project that I've got going on later in the fall for a candlelight vigil. And then, just everybody hang out. And it's just like a 2-hour long. We do it every year. And then there's actually one here in Beckley where I live the next day. So I'm going to go and check that one out. And then on the 31st, well, from the 28th to the 31st, we have our Civic Center and we have a bridge in Charleston that are both being lit up purple. We do have proclamations from the governor and from the city council, for Overdose Awareness Day. Next year, I'm going to be working on getting a law passed to lower flags half staff because they wouldn't do it this year, and I'm really upset about it. And that's what we're doing for that. And then, Lord, there's a ton of stuff for Recovery Month. Sorry, my laptop's going dead and I'm plugging you in.
Well, tell me, JoAnna, after you get plugged in, I appreciate. Oh, there we go. Ah, nice and stable. And what are you doing for Recovery Month? Are you doing anything September 11th? You want to come down and visit us here at McShin?
Is that when you guys are doing yours? Oh my God. That sucks. I wish that I would have known because, I would definitely be there. I have, there's a thing in Lewisburg that they have asked me to come and speak at. Let me double check and make sure they still want me because if they don't, then I'll be there. We are, we're having, this is our third annual Glow Run for Recovery. And it's one of the biggest it's one of the biggest events in the state for Recovery Month. And we shut down the entire boulevard in Charleston. We have all of Magic Island. Get a giant foam machine. I get a giant foam machine for the kids, color powder. Some people do a 5K, not me. I don't run. And, have music and games and food. Speakers. I'll be speaking at that one also. And there's that. I'm thinking I know there's a couple more that I've got. That's 2 different weekends. Save a Life Day is our statewide. NOLOX is the September the 1st, and we've got sites set up all over the state distributing Narcan. And then I'm pretty sure other than that, the very last things here in West Virginia is Healing Appalachia. And I'm not going to get to go this year. It will be my first year that I haven't went, but that's because I'll be in Vegas.
That's a good reason to not go to that. We have a couple of minutes left, and something that I forgot about till just now, and this was one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. One of the many reasons I wanted to talk to you today. So, as you are aware, here in the 7th District, House of Representatives District here in Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, who represents where many of the McShin houses are, and where our RCO is, she has introduced a bill that would make the 10% set aside. And so, for anybody listening right now, there's there's block grant funding that goes to single state agencies, each of the 50 state agencies, for opioid response money, or in this case, it's the substance abuse treatment and prevention block grant, right? And so, in the current budget that was given to the House by Biden-Harris, the Biden-Harris budget that was introduced and has gone through the House, the president put in a 10% set aside in the block grants for substance abuse treatment and prevention that would put 10% aside for recovery support services. So that recognizes the importance of long-term sustained recovery support and helping people get into those, getting into recovery and sustaining that recovery. Abigail Spanberger has taken this one step further and introduced a bill that would put that in law going forward, just beyond this budget, because that block grant's set. I mean, that would change. That would not change very easily. So that's a really good thing. And so it's co-sponsored by 3 other members, one of whom is McKinley. Is that his name? David McKinley, representative of the 1st District, and he's a Republican. Spanberger is a Democrat, but the member in West Virginia's 1st District. Is that your district?
No, I'm in Shelley-Moore Capita's district.
Well, as we go farther, I mean, obviously right now, August, they're at recess right now. The bill was just introduced a couple weeks ago, but already she has 2 Republicans, signed on to sponsor the bill, and she and another Democrat are signed on to sponsor that bill. So, we'll be working on that, going forward. I think with the Recovery Advocacy Project as a whole, but at the state level too, and especially I think here in Virginia with being our representative, we'll certainly be looking in how we can continue to support that. So, thoughts for the future. But anyway, as we're going forward, what are you thinking about? We're at 48 minutes. So what are you thinking about, as a wrap up for this conversation? What have we missed? What haven't we talked about? What do you want to throw in there? What do you want to yell at me for? What do you want to pray? Whatever. What's going on with you that you want to share with us as we round out the last little bit here?
I'm going to yell at you for not telling me about the McShin event sooner. Darn. September fills up fast, like months in advance. Here's one of my paintings. It's not finished yet. It's going to be spin art, so I still have to do that part. Now this. And then Susan's probably not watching. Hang on, I'll show you. I haven't showed anybody. This is the piece that I am actually premiering tonight at the Art Walk. I haven't taken the tape off yet. I'll take it off afterwards, but it's got the hand spraying Narcan. That's a rhododendron. It's our state flower. And then the West Virginia behind. And then that little butterfly is a semicolon butterfly.
JoAnna, for those who might not know, would you take a moment to explain the semicolon, because I love what it means, and I know that I won't do it the same justice that you will, but would you explain to anybody out there who's listening or watching right now what that means?
So a semicolon in in English is used when an author or the writer could have ended a sentence and then chose not to. So it's a place where a period could go and start a new sentence or just end it there. But a semicolon goes in and then you continue on. So the semicolon is a popular trend that was picked up, I don't know how many years ago, but at first it was for suicide. And then many recovery advocates and activists have picked it up for recovery also. I actually have a tattoo right here. And, people are like, I could have died in active addiction, but here I am continuing on. I could have died from that suicide attempt, but here I am continuing on. It's just, a semicolon goes where a period could have but didn't.
I love that answer. That's very much more succinct than I would have put it, and and thank you for that, because I
JoAnna, I
appreciate you.
just want to say I did not know that, and I'm so glad that you explained that to me, to us. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to use that more often now when I write.
Yeah. Um, I thank you. Um, I'm just, I'm just so lucky to have friends like you in my life, and I mean that sincerely, because I hit you up the other day and I said, hey, well, actually, I hit you up like twice. I hit you up at the last minute for one day a couple weeks ago, and both of us are like, bah! And I was sorry about that. We figured it out, but I appreciate you being able to come on today. And we had some planning and some thought in advance. But I love that we can catch up, talk. I'm going to see you in a couple weeks in Vegas, and we got a lot going on. Sorry you didn't get the memo on Recovery Fest. If you can, great. Come. If you can't, well, come next year when we have the barbecue back. Although we did say that last year, but we the no, we can't do the barbecue because of the COVID. I know. I look, it's not up to me otherwise, but we are doing a candlelight vigil here on the 31st. I like what you're right about having that on the Saturday before and doing it at the Capitol building. And I think I'm going to talk to you about doing that next year for us here, for helping me to do that here next year. I don't think there's anything left for me to say today. I'm beat. You've got a beautiful night ahead of you with your art walk, and I think that's really cool. We've been doing some neat stuff around here. I get to see you in a couple weeks. I'm a little jealous of the Hell's Kitchen thing, but I do want you to think about Magic Mike, because I want to go do that. Or maybe it was the Thunder from Down Under. That's what it was. All the Australian guys.
I'm extremely jealous of the Hell's Kitchen thing. I just started watching that. It's and I never liked it before. Like I never ever in fact, I talked a lot of trash about Gordon Ramsay and all that. But wow, yeah, I just started watching on Facebook one day, and now I'm obsessed.
Well, Gordon Ramsay, I liked his British shows. I'm not so keen on him in America. I think he's just too mean. But anyway, with all of that, I do want to say goodbye and thank you to everybody. And I do want to talk about next week. So next week is we're going to do Tuesday, the 24th, we're going to have Heather Ogden. She's from New Jersey. She's also a member of the New Jersey Recovery Advocacy Project. So we're going to talk about that, Mobilize Recovery. She and I walked around Vegas. We kind of got lost a little bit too. JoAnna, you won't get lost. It's real easy. But we're going to kick it with her in the herd next Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we're gonna not do Women Wednesdays on this Wednesday. We're gonna actually have a person in recovery, a friend of mine. His name is Nathan Isaac. So we're gonna have the two Nathans in the herds. What are we calling this here? In the herd room here in the.
I'll think about that and get back to you.
Yeah,
we got to think of a good name for it.
In the corral. All right, you can tell I need to go to bed. So anyway, we're going to have Nathan Isaacs here. We're going to talk about his recovery and his recovery pathway. He's also one of my housemates. So we got two Nathans with long hair living in the same house. That's pretty crazy. And then on Thursday, we have a woman named Diane Kaufman. She's going to come and she's going to talk about her story and talk about childhood trauma, and talk about what she does as a psychologist to combat addiction and getting children early and helping to prevent things from going forward from there. So I'm looking forward to next week. Thank you, everybody. And JoAnna, did you want to say anything else before we close out? I love you. Good luck tonight. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everybody watching and listening. See you next week.
Here at McShin, we believe in the McShin way, which is authentic recovery support service providers, people with lived experience, bringing that experience to those who need that lived experience in recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in many things to support our mission. We believe in women empowerment.
What I love most about what we believe here at McShin is we believe in the authenticity of the peer-to-peer approach.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in giving people opportunity.
Here at McShin, we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
At the McShin Foundation, we believe in helping people reach their full potential.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in multiple pathways to recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in placing principles before personalities to help spread hope.
Here at McShin, we believe that recovery is possible and that any person seeking recovery can become a more acceptable, responsible, and productive member of society.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in self-discovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in saving lives and offering second chances.
Here at McShin, we believe you can do this.
Here at McShin Foundation, we believe that we can only keep what we have by giving away, which is why we continue to help others like us seek and find recovery.